Money FM 89.3, the best of the afternoon update.
Welcome to Industry Insight. I'm Lynlee, and today we're diving into a bold shift in education that could reshape how future talent is discovered, developed, and deployed across Singapore's workforce. Now, Nanyang Polytechnic has recently launched Singapore's first cross-school common entry program, one that spans business, IT, and engineering. This gives students more flexibility to explore different courses before deciding what they want to study. It is the latest addition to the growing number of common entry programs, which are designed for students to explore various diploma courses within a specific disciplinary cluster before specializing in a chosen field. Beyond just expanding student options, such initiatives could signal something much bigger, a rethink of how industry, education, and employability intersect. Joining me is Russell Chan, Principal and the CEO of Nanyang Polytechnic. Russell, welcome to the show.
Hi, Lynlee. Glad to be here.
Now, let's start right at the top. Can you tell us more about this new program?
Oh, yes, indeed. So, as you mentioned, coming in the new academic year 2026, we over here at Nanyang Poly, we are very excited to be launching our newest common entry program that's called the Common Business and Technology Program, or CBTP for short. And it is indeed the very first common entry program that from the Polytechnics that actually allows students to eventually choose from a diploma course in either the business or IT or engineering disciplines. So over here at NYP, affectionately, we call it the program with BITE, so B-I-T-E.
Okay.
Right? So yeah, it is indeed the first time that we are doing this, and we are very, very excited to be able to launch it in the coming year.
What makes it different?
So common entry programs have been around since 2017. I think at the onset, you are talking about 10% of students taking this common entry pathway. But you fast forward to today, we have about 30% of students who are going into choosing to go into common entry programs. And the issue with common entry programs is that they are good. It's just that up to this point, common entry programs tend to be kind of centered on the same domain. So you are talking about common entry programs for the IT, common entry programs for engineering. And so students who may say that, I have equal interest in IT and engineering, then what do I do? So I think for NYP, we listen to the students. And so, it kind of encouraged us and kind of spur us to kind of think a bit deeper and then to kind of launch a common entry program that does not just lead to, it leads to not just one domain, not two domains, but three domains, right? That kind of crosses business and IT and engineering. And it took a bit of time, it took a bit of effort, but I think we are very glad that we are able to now launch it.
Just to be clear, you're saying that this model, this Common Business and Technology program, is the first that allows students to engage in interdisciplinary exploration before locking into a diploma, is that right?
Yes, indeed. That's how it works. So I suppose going a bit into the details, students who choose this Common Business and Technology program, what they will do is that they can look forward to a common program in their first semester. That's the first 6 months of their studies. And then after that, they can choose a diploma either from the business field, or they can choose to go into the common ICT program or the common engineering program. Wow. So after 6 months, they can already kind of start to decide, is it business that kind of interests me more, or is it actually the IT or the engineering side? And then they can continue from there.
Wow, fantastic. Yeah. And why now, Russell? What made NYP feel this was the moment to launch something like this? And what problem is it trying to solve, both for learners and for the industries they'll eventually serve?
So indeed, I think for us, it really stems from wanting to offer students a choice, right? Because common entry programs, the objective of common entry programs is precisely to allow students a chance to experience the learning before they have to decide on the exact diploma that they want to take. So this really caters, first of all, to students who feel that they may have some interest in two or more domains, and they really want to find out a bit more about what each has to offer before they make the choice, right? And then before they choose the diploma course that they want. So I think for us, as mentioned, I think we have been listening. We come across students who say that, common entry programs are good, but really I have interest in more than one domain. Then what do I do? So I think we took that feedback and then we kind of re-look into what we currently offer and then we kind of unpack the learning and we repack the learning. And that's how we arrive at, say, not a common entry program that not just offers branching into one specific domain, but really into three different ones. And we really want to listen to the students and give them that choice.
Wow, it's great that you're disrupting the siloed model and giving students space to discover where their strengths lie. Now, there's a growing sense that traditional academic benchmarks no longer fully capture what it means to be job ready. How is Nanyang Poly rethinking what success looks like in this new landscape?
Well, I would say that, the fundamentals have not drastically changed. I think at the end of the day, it is still about the competencies, it's about readiness for work, right? But I think at the same time, I think we also want to kind of take on board the experience, the learning experience, what the students go through. And in some ways, this is also exemplified by the students' desire to take ownership of the choices that they make. Right. So I think in this regard, common entry programs, simply kind of offers that choice to students, but that takes nothing away from the angle, which is that the learning is still there, it's still rigorous, and we still think very hard about the competencies that they are going to build up, even in the first semester. And I think that is really the mission of the polytechnics.
Okay. 30% of poly students, I read, now opt for common entry pathways. How do you think employers should be responding?
Well, I think first and foremost, if I were an employer, I would be quite happy to hear that. I think what it simply means is that students in general are really a lot more discerning, they're a lot more curious, and they do kind of, beyond all the fun in learning, I think they're very discerning. They can't look at the outcomes. They can't look at what they're going to do. And I think when it comes to the difference between common entry and direct entry, I would say that students who perhaps at a particular point in time they're a lot more sure about their choice, a lot more sure about what they want to do, then they may opt to go straight into a diploma course of their choice. But for students who kind of say that, I have slightly differing interests, I just am not quite ready, I am then prepared to invest the time. I'm prepared to take the ownership of my own learning. I'm going to go and choose a common entry program. And then I'll kind of experience it. I'll find out for myself what being in a particular discipline is like before I then make that choice. I think either way, as an employer, I think it's good to know that the younger generation nowadays, I think on the whole, they will really want to be taking ownership and I think taking that initiative to put in the time to find out more. So I think as an employee of the future, I think it bodes well because it means that if they kind of buy into what they need to do, I think then they are prepared to invest that time and invest the effort.
Okay. This common entry pathway, it's flexible, it's great, but do you think fixed academic pathways still serve learners well today?
Oh, yes, indeed. I think for fixed pathways and common entry, the key difference is just, how it's in the journey, right? It's not quite, the destination is the same. It's about being competent. It's about being ready for the job. I think it's just the journey that the students will take in getting there.
I see.
Again, for the fixed entry pathways, I think it is really for students who are very, very clear about what they want to do, right? And they have found out more about the program. They think there's a fit, and they will go in, right? I think for those who choose the common entry, I think, again, they made a choice. It's a conscious decision. They want to explore a bit. Now, common entry programs, just to kind of reassure employers out there, it doesn't take away any of the rigor. So if I take the CBTP as an example, while it leads to three different domains, what the team has done is that we really look into the curriculum, we look into what's common across business, IT, and engineering. And that's how we then build that foundation. So if you look into the curriculum, you have things like user experience, you have things like some business fundamentals, you still have a bit of programming, you still have a bit of applied mathematics, So these are things which we feel are still equally important, regardless of whether you are in business, IT, or engineering. So the rigor is definitely there, and that's how we kind of are able to come up with this program.
Okay. Moving on a little bit, Russell, we've heard the term hybrid talent thrown around, people who can bridge tech, business, and engineering. Why is this kind of talent becoming critical, especially at the PMET level?
That's a very good question. I would say that without sounding all doom and gloom, but I think the world today is a lot more competitive, is a lot more complex. getting the same thing done may require the person to take on a larger perspective to see the bigger picture. So I think what used to, a simple way of clinching business, in today's context, you've got a lot more things to think about. You've got to think about what the client wants. You've got to think about the user experience. You've got to think about the supply chain. You've got to think about sustainability considerations. So, just to get the same thing done may require a lot more considerations. I think this is the part where then students and fresh entrants to the job market, the need to be versatile, the need to be more well exposed, is then very critical. And I think this is the part then where hybrid talent, where common entry programs, where interdisciplinary learning will come in useful, because it kind of opens up the learner to a lot more different experiences and a lot more different perspectives. And I think, take an example, for Nanyang Poly, we used to have a diploma in engineering with business. But recently, we realized that even that is not enough, because now the whole world is talking about sustainability. And in order to be still plugged into the supply chain, kind of conform and meet certain industry standards. So I think that's why we then launch into sustainability in engineering with business. I think this really aims to equip our learners with, the different perspectives that are going to be required to get a job done.
Yeah, and these days, I think industry collaboration is also very important. So how are you working with partners to make sure the skills taught stay in sync with actual workforce demand?
Yes. So for NYP, I think being very closely connected with the industry is really part of our DNA. And we really do this at several levels. I mean, at the very top level, you're talking about inviting industry experts to come in and sit on our advisory committees. They advise us on the curriculum, on our approach to learning. And then at the next level, we set up industry networks, right, such as the Alliance for Sustainability Innovation, where we kind of facilitate interactions between industry members. And through that, our staff and our students get to learn what's the latest. And then all the way down to the ground, this is the part where through our pedagogy, like the professional competency model, where we invite industry to come in to co-design and co-deliver the curriculum. And then we have the industry projects. We have internships with the industry. I think these are different ways where we kind of stay very well connected with the industry. I mean, take our diploma in cloud engineering, for example. It is also one of the new diplomas that we are launching next year. I mean, students get to intern with GovTech, they get to intern with Singtel and Xera, right? Who are, they are really into the cloud space. Right now, everything is driven by cloud. So I think this is how we kind of find different ways to work with industry to ensure that our learners get the opportunities to be, to have their authentic learning and to be very, very plugged into what the opportunities are out there.
Students these days are just so fortunate, I think. And how is NYP anticipating long-term shifts in the job market? With that, how does that inform the way you shape your programs and curriculum?
I think there are a lot of things that are ongoing now. I mean, we have all obviously heard about AI, all right? We all obviously heard about things like to do with sustainability. I mean, these are things that therefore NYP, and I'm sure like all the other polys, we consciously kind of see how we can infuse some of the foundations and some of the early learning in this space into our learning so that our students are kind of well-grounded. But beyond that, I think the key thing is really about how we create that continuum in learning. I think students and many of us, we probably heard it many times, this need for lifelong learning. I think it is a very real thing. But I think this is something that even as an education institution, how we build that continuum is very important. So for NYP, when we go into professional competency model as a form of pedagogy, that model extends into the adult learning space. So our programs are designed to offer the continuum. And so in that sense, our students can always return and they can carry on with their learning. They go into post-diploma programs and so on and so forth, and then articulate maybe into further studies as well, right, at the degree level and so on. I think that's one way where we are kind of geared to kind of what the future may hold.
Russell, this initiative, this program that you've recently launched, it's the first, as we've mentioned. Do you think this cross-school model could become the new normal in poly education?
Well, for NYP, we definitely will not stop here. I think the program can be, of course, always further refined. And of course, we can also look into, depending on the experience that we get out of this program, we will always fine-tune. And we'll always be looking for other ways, right, where we can help students kind of access the kind of options that they desire. I mean, of course, then we keep an eye on how the industry is also shifting. Because at the end of the day, like I said, it's always about the competencies. But I don't think we'll stop here. I think we will definitely kind of see what other options we can provide, whether it's a common entry program or how we can get more schools to work across together. As it stands, we already have some diplomas which involve 2 or more schools. And I think that's a good model for us to build on.
Competencies and keeping pace with how industries are transforming, I suppose, is key. And how does this all tie back to national efforts like Skills Future? What role do institutions like NYP play in translating those goals into tangible pathways for learners?
Yes. So definitely, I think the learning doesn't stop with the full-time diploma. I mean, after 3 years, yes, the student may go on to further studies, they may go on to degree programs, but ultimately, they will enter the workforce, whether as an employee or whether as a startup, as an entrepreneur. But I think the learning doesn't stop. So I think what is very critical is for us to kind of build that foundation and to build that hunger for lifelong learning. And I think it's not always just from the students or from the educators' perspective. I think here, because of how closely we work with the industry, I think the industry definitely has a very big role to play. And I think this is the part where through things like our PCM, getting the employers, the companies to come in, not just as a consumer of talent, but as a co-creator, right? We kind of co-create the curriculum. We kind of work together to facilitate that learning and then to kind of give options. I think that is probably something that is really, really worth preserving and worth expanding on, I would say, going forward.
Okay. I understand that you've got 4 other new diplomas in areas like biomedical analytics, cloud engineering, and media and comms. I'm just curious, what's the big picture strategy behind these and what common thread ties them all together?
Okay. So indeed, I think for us, I think this coming year is going to be very interesting for us because of all these new programs and the new common entry program. But I think that the way that, there's ever a kind of a northern compass that guides us, I would say it boils down always to 3 things. One is really about industry, right? How we stay very plugged into industry to kind of get a sense of what's coming, and then we kind of respond together in time so that the learning is always relevant. 2 is then, of course, having identified these opportunities, the areas that we ought to go into, then it's really, again, working with industry to identify what are the competencies that will be required. And then we kind of find the best way to design the curriculum such that we can help students access those competencies. But I think the third one is really, from an education perspective, is also, what matters a lot is also the learning experience. The journey there is as important as the destination itself. So I think this is the part where things like common entry programs, giving students a choice, to experience different things before they kind of have to settle on one choice. Things like that, I think is increasingly going to be very important. And I think the interplay between these 3 areas, I think, will kind of continue to guide NYP's strategy going forward.
Interesting. Now, before we wrap, a final thought. For students, parents, and hiring managers who are trying to keep up with the pace of change, what mindset shift do you think we all need in order to perhaps better align education, passion, and long-term employability?
Well, I would say that the mindset shift is already happening. I think it really, really boils down to how prepared we are as individuals for lifelong learning. And then how education institutions, how educators, and how industry can come in and we can work together, almost like a tri-party collaboration, now how we can facilitate their lifelong learning. I think we all know, as adult learners, can be challenges and things like that. So, how employers work with us, say on work-study programs, how the government can come in to provide the right support mechanisms such that the learning takes place. I think all these are going to be critical to kind of support this ongoing desire for lifelong learning. But that, I think, unfortunately, in some ways, is also the way to go